Welcome to Make Possible Bitesize, a weekly podcast brought to you by Permutive, championing change in publishing, advertising, and beyond. Each episode, we chat to an inspiring guest about their careers, their lives, and how they're making change possible. Let's bite right in.
Hey everyone, I'm Bradley Redford, Partner Sales Director at APAC here at Permutive. Welcome to Make Possible Bitesize. Today, I'm lucky to be joined on the show by Vincent, Niou, Associate Vice President of Programmatic and Data Strategy at APAC for Essence. Hi Vince, how are you?
All right, thanks for having me, Bradley.
Thank you for joining us. How about a good place to start for those who may not have seen you on any kind of videos or presentations recently, with a quick intro to who you are and what you do at Essence.
Sure. So my name is Vincent, Niou, and I look after APAC data strategy at Essence. So I started my Essence career in New York back in 2011. So I just passed the 9-year mark. And I've also had stops in San Francisco and Shanghai before landing in Singapore in 2017, with the task to help build our APAC programmatic practice. Starting this year, I've taken on the responsibility of developing our data strategy capabilities in APAC. And when we say data strategy, really that broadly falls into 5 categories. One is data governance and organization, so helping brands better understand the origins of their data, how it's stored and managed, and the opportunities and benefits the data provides. The second is data-driven planning and segmentation, so organizing signals of all types for strategic insight generation, ideation, as well as addressable segments that we can tactically target downstream. The third is data acquisition, so just a very broad term for identifying trustworthy value-adding data from external sources. And then tech stack strategies, helping brands define the optimal platform architecture to support their business goals, as well as helping manage and onboard those pieces of technology as needed. And then lastly, creative augmentation. So that's collaborating with we have an in-house experience team. So collaborating with them to supply the creative process with data inputs to inform and augment creative ideation and delivery.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Vince. You're really stuck into everything, all things data. Thank you for the introduction. I guess a good time to now is kick off with our first Make Possible question. For some, it's a tricky one, but what are you most proud of?
Yeah, I think it's actually an easy one for me. I am most proud of our APAC programmatic team. As mentioned, the original reason I was asked to come to Singapore was to help build the practice. And when I landed here, including myself, the team was 6 people, and now we're up to nearly 30 folks. And this is the team that looks after programmatic planning and activation across all markets in APAC. Obviously, I have some level of bias, but I do believe wholeheartedly that I could put this group up against any programmatic outfit in the world. They are the most skilled, diligent, intelligent group I've had the opportunity to work with in my 13 years in the business. And I think as good as they are at their jobs, they're even better people, right? And they've really built a culture of accountability, high standards, positive reinforcement, and really just taking pride in the work they do day in, day out. So many of these folks, they joined Essence as junior members, and over the years, they've grown into leaders in their own right. And I think, each of them will do great things. And, I feel blessed to have had the opportunity to hopefully play a small part in the development.
Yeah, that's really amazing, Vince. And it really sounds like you've helped build a team with a great culture, really focusing on growth and development. And I guess I'm sure there's a few people listening to this or will be listening to this who are just starting out in their careers as well. Is there any advice you would like to give to those people to help them with their growth and development as they kick on through their careers?
Yeah, obviously, I think everyone's circumstances are different, but I think, I guess a few principles that I think will hold true is that, first of all, whatever you're doing, whether it's programmatic or data, whatever you're doing, you kind of have to like the subject, ideally. You have to be interested in the subject, right? And I think, in order to be able to spend the time that's required to really understand the first principles that govern what you're doing, it helps to like it, right? Because then what you have to do is you have to put in the time to really understand it. Because I think a lot of times, at least in the beginning, you're trying to get your bearings and you rely a lot on rote memorization. And that might help in the beginning, but really what you want to do is aim for understanding so you can rederive whatever concept you're really learning so you know it from the inside out. So in terms of programmatic, that's a lot of that is how the internet works. So understanding the underlying technology is important. And then from there, you have to put in the work, right? I think when you're starting out, there's no way around putting in the hours required to really understand something and develop the meta knowledge, the process knowledge, the things that you can't get off of a support page. Like that's experience that takes time. So putting in the work to get that. And then lastly, I think just, taking pride in your work. Obviously you're being paid to do a job. You probably have clients, you probably have bosses, but you don't want those to be your motivating factors. You want to be motivated to do a good job and develop your best work, deliver your best work intrinsically. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to sustain you, right? I mean, the external motivations will be there sometimes, but they might not always be there. So just kind of ensure that you have the something internal that's kind of forcing you forward.
Yeah, that's some really great advice there. And I think, being proud of your work for me personally is one thing that I think is super important when starting out in your career. I guess, moving now on to the second make possible question, apart from a little deviation there. What are you focusing on today to move onward and upward at work?
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is necessarily something I'm just focusing on today, but a principle that I generally subscribe to is that technical expertise unlocks creativity. And when I say technical expertise, I don't necessarily mean technical in terms of like an ad tech. I mean, it can mean that, but really what I mean is like understanding the principles and fundamentals that govern a concept, right? And I think at the end of the day, there can be creativity in just about anything. And the ability to express creativity within an endeavor it's one of the ultimate signs that you really understand it, right? Or that that you're an expert in what you're doing. So if we use like sports as an analogy, let's say mixed martial arts, the way like a high level fighter can implement a game plan, read and anticipate the movements of their opponent, use counters and things. There's a lot of creativity and improvisation involved, but it takes a lot of time and understanding of the basics to get to the point where he or she can implement the creativity and express that in a fight condition. So um, people often talk about like innovation or thinking outside the box, or essentially being creative, like thinking outside the box. But like you have to know your way around the box first or within the box before you can find your way outside of it. And that really means putting the time to understand first principles. So okay, bringing this back to the question and what I'm, I guess, doing, I realize I kind of went off on a tangent, is that like back in August, I started a master's program in data analytics at Singapore Management University. And, it's a part-time thing I'm doing on the side. So evenings, weekends, whatever, whenever I'm not doing a day job. But, I think a lot of times within our industry, there's a difference between, having technical knowledge and knowledge of technical subjects. And I think for somebody like myself, I'd say over the course of my career, I've built up a lot of the latter. And the purpose of my going back to school now is to, increase my level in the former, because given my role and responsibilities, I think it's really important to be able to look under the hood, past the buzzwords and be able to see, the tools we're using, and the answers we're getting, the solutions we're providing for it with a very clear, unbiased view. And it's a bet that I'm making on myself as well, that by doing so, by building up more technical knowledge, this will allow me to see more patterns, see more opportunities, connect more dots, and just be more creative and also have better conversations with the engineers and data scientists we work with, right? And ultimately, what we hope is that leads to better solutions for our clients.
Yeah. But that all sounds really amazing, and good luck finishing that off over the next year or so. Moving on to our final question for today's bite-sized show. What has been your guiding light or principle to make things possible?
Is it alright if I give two?
Yeah, go on. Hopefully Rob won't mind too much.
All right, cool. So like I think the first one is it's something I call attack mode, and I like to think of it as a default mindset. It's something I try to practice as much as possible, and I preach it to my team. And what I mean by that is, obviously not physically, literally attack somebody, but if I were to apply it to a work context, I think within our industry, there's an incredible rate of change, and I think it's imperative to be aggressively proactive in our approach to learning, to testing, to improving. And it means as much as possible being on the front foot and advancing in some way, right? So if I were to apply this to a hypothetical client relationship, I believe that we as an agency essence, we should always be asking our clients, smart questions, proactively bringing solutions forward, and essentially, trying to push your clients as much as possible, in a good way, of course. And if we're in a situation where if the clients are the ones that are always bringing forth the ideas and pushing us to do more, then I think we're doing it wrong. We're not doing our jobs as an agency, right? So that's the first one. And then the second concept or principle is what I like to think of as volume over perfection. And I'm not, I'm not trying to paint with a broad brush, but I do think that we often have a tendency to look for reasons not to do something, or wanting to wait for the exact right conditions or needing things to be perfect before moving forward. And a principle that served me well in my career is that an idea doesn't necessarily have to be perfect to execute. Like you don't want to let perfect get in the way of great, right? And obviously, like, common sense applies, but really, what I mean is, and I tell my teams, like, don't be afraid of pulling the trigger at 90%, because in an ideal world, we would have time and resources to perfect every idea, but the reality is that that's just it doesn't really happen, right? It's not how the world we live in or the time that we have. And I think really what's important is creating a body of work, because if you compile quote unquote smaller achievements and learnings over time, naturally you generate positive momentum that leads to bigger things, and success leads to success. So I think that applies to life as much as work. And one of my favorite quotes, this is from Bruce Lee, is if you spend too much time thinking about a thing, you'll never get it done. So as much as possible, I try my best to keep reminding myself of that and trying to practice it as much as possible.
Yeah, I think both points there are amazing. I think they do somewhat interlink as well. And I'm sure we could spend many more hours talking about these kind of things, but we are unfortunately running up to time here. Thank you so much for being part of today's episode, Vince. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me. It was a blast.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Vince. Well, that leaves me with thanking all the listeners and viewers for tuning in to Make Possible Bitesize. We'll be back next week with another inspiring guest talking about what they do to champion change, thinking of new exciting ways to make a difference. Bye for now.